You, snot-nosed yesteryear kid. I built you up. I gave you an in to Gran Turismo. All you had to do was to do as I say. But you made this stupid rebellion for what? Your honor? The integrity of the sport? I will end you. Watch your career and you.
This is it, the World Championship. This is where all my journey in those blue cars are given a meaning. What kind of ending will it have? Will it be glorious or will it fizzle down to nothing? To find out, into the world of Gran Turismo we go. I went in here in a Camaro, knowing full well that usually this is exactly the car everyone would laugh at in the World Championship. That and an odd tire combination plus my inability to properly tune a car had caused a rather unwanted understeer to ruin my attempts. So, if I were to have a shot, I'll have to employ the creative racing technique, which had allowed me to reach the Jaguar before he could escape. Lap 2 and already, I'm in front, but with a monster behind me, the fight had just gotten started. So, with complete human ingenuity, I ensure to keep myself in front. This keeps the Jaguar from fleeing to the horizon once it's done feasting upon my weaknesses. Deep down, I wish I didn't have to resort to this chip trick, but I had no other choice. It was either this or total defeat at the very start of the competition. I had no idea what part of my tuning had done this, but the Camaro experienced too much understeer for this track. Surely, against all odds, the Jaguar had made a reappearance on the top of the podium, but I still had one more weapon left, the nitrous. On the straights, I challenged the Jaguar to a competition of pure speed and won. But that victory didn't last long, so as unfortunate as it was for the Jaguar, I was at a point where I was willing to do anything to win. Was that dirty? Absolutely. Did I regret it? Absolutely not, especially after seeing how vicious and faster my opponents were in this competition. This back and forth went on for quite some time until the final lap, in where my tires had been overcooked. This was where creative racing techniques became even more important than ever. I knew these tires had become unreliable for fast-paced cornering. With this absolute resilience and a bit of thinking outside of the box, I managed to bag the first victory of the tournament. In the second round, there's not much to be said other than how outclassed my Camaro truly was compared to my rivals. That's before, which had lost me the lead to the BMW. The next round was set in Hong Kong. Technical track could be bad for my Camaro, but the good news is, none of them can pull magical nonsensical hacks and ruin my championship. With P1 in hand right off the bat, credits to the qualifier round by the way, I made it my mission to hold on to this lead all the way until the race's end. Despite the LMR's vicious strikes, I held on and preserved. Not even these juvenile tactics could shake me off the hairpin.
You know this ain't over, right?
Smells like desperation from you! Lap 3 and I was still in front, but usually this is where my rivals would enter sicko mode, so I had to be even more vigilant this time. I cleared the hairpin right before the LMR could do anything stupid, but eventually the BMW would make a meaningful strike against me. So, I retaliated.
You dirty shitty piece of shit! I'll kill you for this, you hear me? You're dead! You're f***ing dead!
I mean, he kinda deserved it, so back to the race, in where I was still leading. But being overjoyed from toppling my biggest rival had caused me to forget about the breaking point, while I saved myself from being stuck to the walls. This mistake had given my other, just as vicious rivals a one-time chance to bury me in the dust. I tried as I might, but the Jaguar had ran off to the sunset. 3 seconds gap, born from an honest mistake. That was bad. To make things worse, my rear tires are dead by the 9th lap. At that point, I don't think anything could stop the Jaguar. Even that car pitting in changed nothing, as I also needed to pit in. Man, what kind of horrible strategy is this? You know what? If P1 was not possible anymore, then at least I'd like to finish ahead of the LMR. And on the final lap, I turned that vision into an objective reality. Stay down, Blue Lock.
You insignificant f***. Enjoy this tournament while it lasts, because when I win, I'll ban you from racing ever again. You hear me? Your racing days are over!
Well, that was that. Another loss in the tournament, and all I achieved was changing my biggest competition to a Pescarolo. We are a third into the cup, and the only time I won was when I basically cheated, if you ask me. This is a real sign that I was not cut out for this, and I think that sabotaging my greatest rivals like that LMR was necessary to keep myself competitive points-wise. Well, since I'm already here, I might as well go for the deep end and see where it will take me. I once again opted to pace and defend myself, and there goes my qualifiers. Well, it was a good thing that at this point, putting down these fires was easy, but that raised an alarm in me to employ a bolder driving style to keep my lead. I gave it everything I had, but the Jaguar was still glued to my tail. At that moment, I was quick enough to prevent the Jaguar from eating me alive, while I began to master the track, to the point of being able to predict where my rifles would strike, these tires would eventually begin to wear. Since pitting now would be utterly stupid, I preserved. For the rest of this race, I focused entirely on making it to the finish line as fast as I could. And would you look at that? Human perseverance and ingenuity have won once more. That round had proven that I could win a race fair and square. As for El Capitan, let's say that the Camaro's proclivity for the straight and narrow had once again forced my hands to resort towards a creative racing technique. Lap 4 and the LMR had shown his fangs. Of course, between the creative racing techniques and my adequate driving and the Camaro's doing its best, I was still capable of escaping his grasp. On lap 5, I cracked the code for turn 9. This way, I managed to be much faster compared to my rivals and began to extend my lead. With refined muscle memory and my creative racing techniques, I get to completely turn the tables against my supposedly superior foes. For a good while, I remained unchallenged, but problem began to brew. On the 9th lap, my tires had shown signs of extensive wear and tear. This will translate into lower paces when my opponents seem to have a much better tire life. At this point, I had to rely on dirty tactics to remain competitive within the race, which did not last long as I made that short trip to the stands on the 10th lap. Had I not acted quickly to defend myself, I would have truly snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. With the LMR pulling a complete Ferrari strategy, I managed to secure the lead, both in the race and in the tournament as a whole. That's 2 races in a row. Has my luck turned around for the better? Is this where I'll start going back to earning win after wins? We shall see that in New York, where even from the very first lap, the LMR was already hot on my tail. So, from the 4th lap onwards, I amped up on aggressiveness. No matter what, I must stay in front. And honestly, I'm sick and tired of this LMR trying to ram me off the road. So, I decided to give him a little piece of my mind. You're done pestering me, Blue Lock.
That's my line! Why couldn't you just stay? Who cares if you lose a race or 2? I'll still be rich. You'll still get to race. What's so important you threw everything away?
You control what cars I use, Blue Lock, not when I win or lose. That was the deal. Look at that LMR. Lap 5 and he's so desperate. I can count at least 4 probing attempts. But of course, you don't poke through the Minister of Defense that easily. Or so I'd like to believe. The Jaguar, you see, is an even faster opponent, held back only by his tire life. So, I decided to silence this uninvited third partier and resume my fight against BMW. If I could hold onto this pace, this race would be in the bag. But my stubbornness had myself towards in a situation in where I was racing with dead tires. But I adapted to this worsening condition until I couldn't. On the final lap, things fell apart. With me unable to defend myself anymore, I had to be happy with 3rd place. Maybe I would have learned my lesson in Opera Paris. I pushed both myself and the Camaro through the ringer, but the gap between me and the next fastest thing in this race had never reached half a second. And let me tell you, driving like this for 18 whole laps in a track this tricky was no easy task. Lap 10 and the Jaguar had pitted in, but I trucked on. With dying tires, I fended off the LMR on the chicane, and to avoid history repeating itself, I decided to pit in on lap 13. This turned out to be a big mistake. See, the reason why I could remain on top of that Jaguar before was because I am adept at blocking. But now, with the Jaguar achieving freedom, I can't exactly block him off anymore. And objectively, a XGR9 will always be better than a Camaro LM. No matter what I've done, there was no simply remedying that gap. And again, I scored another defeat in the tournament. When the Jaguar ate sand for the first time in Suzuka, I wasted no time in punishing him for his mistakes. While it was glorious, the Jaguar's choke had sent a chilling reminder. In a race this tight, any mistake could and most likely would be your downfall. And that was exactly what had gotten me on the 3rd lap. This horrible mistake had put my entire journey in a jeopardy. But that didn't mean I'll just give up, because I knew that perseverance would win the— Okay, you know what? I think I had enough of this BMW trying to trip me up in this already dangerous track. Screw you, Blue Lock.
Is that how you repay me? By trying to kill me?
You did it first. You raced just like you made your contracts dirty. To make things better, I found that my fastest opposition was stalled at the end of the spoon curve. Naturally, I pushed what fight was left in my front tires and took my rightful post back. Now, as I needed as much grip as I could, I opted for a pair of racing mediums, and with me running out of tires in the middling point of the race, I pitted in, letting the rest of the grid fly away. But you know what? That's fine by me, because I knew at least some of them would have to pit in eventually. And would you look at that? Both the R390 and the McLaren did just that. And honestly, at this point, silver medal is an acceptable result. After all, the overall tournament was still mine to win. Since I was defeated again, the Grand Valley race became even more important to win. So far, I was still leading in points, but that's mostly because of the 2 wins I've gotten before set quite the gap. If I lose this one, it will set a dangerous precedent for the final round. But of course, in dangerous corners, such as the final hairpin, I still showed everyone the real reason I managed to stay on top. This approach worked wonders. For now. See, even in the Grand Valley Speedway, my prime was just barely enough to keep the others at bay. And as seen at the 6th lap, it was impossible to keep that pace. But despite that and a vicious attack on their hairpin, I remained resolute. I will hold on to this position no matter what. I dueled the Pescarolo down the 7th lap with all I got. At this point, blocking this vicious enemy on literally every turn had become important. Screw the fastest lap times, screw the racing line. That Pescarolo is staying back, and that's final. Unfortunately, down the S's, my tires just didn't have what it takes anymore. So, I had no choice but to let go and rebound with ferocious anger. My first chance came with both bottom dwellers pitting in. With that, P4 was at hand. Next up was the XGR9, giving up on the fight right on the 10th lap. That's 3, 2 more to go. Even by the 10th lap, both the Pescarolo and the BMW pitted in, but they were at least 30 seconds ahead. Can I overtake them? When I was on a hairpin, they were on their way to continue racing. Not good, but at least I still had more speed in comparison. Once I hit the first corner of the final lap, those two had returned to their full paces. Truth was, I never got a chance from the start. That's another loss. And while I might still leading in terms of points, I have to absolutely win the final round or else all would be lost. And where more will the ultimate showdown be held if not in Le Mans? As this track had bore witnesses to countless legends, it will also bear witness to mine. By starting in P1, I could ensure none of my rivals could run off into the sunset. And while Le Mans is exceptionally long, I only have to survive 4 laps here. Definitely doable without going into the pits. On the second chicane of the Mulsanne Straight, the only one that could keep up was the LMR. It had gotten to a point where I was actually overtaken, but nothing a quick fix from the speed juice could not fix. With me pacing the LMR, came the rest of the grid to wrestle. As I flew towards the S's, I employed the highest level of caution as possible to fend off at least 3 LMPs from my back. As long as I keep this pace for the remainder of the race, I remain headstrong in the duel for first. Our fight continued until the pressure had reached the XGR9. Despite that, I was still less than a second away from defeat. But no matter how many they are, how ceaseless their attacks were, I remained resolute. None of them shall pass. But right after the Pescarolo succumbed to the sands, the LMR took its place and actually made an overtake. That was bad. I gotta undo that overtake somehow. Out from anyone that should not win today, it's that LMR. But the good news, my tires remain strong in the final lap. So, with P1 back in hand and I can go all out, I can finally take bold moves and end this championship on a high note. Now, despite the shortcomings in the previous rounds, Le Mans was actually the perfect round for my Camaro. There were no corners too sharp for us here. On the Mulsanne Straight, my pace was just right to keep the rest of the pack at bay. My only fears were at the chicane, out of the bloodthirsty BMW's proclivity of trying to send me to the Shadow Realm. Just like that one. Even right at the end of the long famous straights, the murder attempts did not cease. I knew that my rival was pulling all the stops here.
No, 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 no! I cannot lose! I'm Blue Lock, boss of the Blue Troopers! I am not losing everything to some idiot that had to look for me to race!
But on this critical point of the race, the LMR managed to pull off one last stand on the S's.
I knew you don't know what it takes! I'll win! What?
Little that LMR knew, I still had my creative racing techniques in my disposal. After 10 rounds, nothing short of an emotional roller coaster. After 10 races, each determining the very meaning of this run, I have finally won the World Championship! I still can't believe you pulled that off.
So, what now?
Now, I'll continue racing, but not only here. There's so much more out there than just Gran Turismo, like Grid or Forza or so many more. I want to experience all of them. But that doesn't mean goodbye to Gran Turismo. I'll definitely come back here and race again. What about you?
No idea. Maybe I'll travel around like you. With Blue Lock's gone, I don't have to hide anymore.
Cobalt Blue Lock freeze! You are under arrest for multiple...
This name, it sucks. But it will do. Streaks, did you really think you've ruined me? If there's something I got to learn from you, it's I'll always get back up. Even if you bring me down 99 times, I'll never stop. I'm inevitable, and everyone's gonna know it.